What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today, well, we've been talking about BT9 quite a lot, right? And we've been talking about it being an X-Antibody set and the fact that Aphamon and all that's in there, but we've not, since the set came out, taken a good look at the X-Antibody deck, which seems like a bit of an oversight on my part. So let's go and do that today. This was a deck list which won a tournament played by Quick, which was shared by the lovely folks over at Ensan Gaming, for which I am rather grateful. And of course, like I say, we are talking full X-Antibody here, and it does seem like this is genuinely one of the top decks now that BT9 is out and BT9 is legal, and that's rather lovely. So, with all of that borne in mind, let's start off having a little bit of a look at the Digitama. And what we've got here is your Doraemon from BT7. Once per turn, when one of your effects places a Digivolution card under this Digimon, draw a card. And that is a very standard thing for X-Antibody decks to do. They like putting stuff under, so yeah, that actually makes perfect sense, so that should be the one we play with, and life is good. Moving over into level 3s, we've got ourselves the Doraemon from BT7. When you play, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add a card with X-Antibody and its traits, and a Kota the Moto to your hand. Place the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. So that's really good for consistency in an X-Antibody deck. And on your turn, once per turn, as an inheritable skill, when one of your effects places a Digivolution card under this Digimon, gain a memory. And again, we've already said this is the kind of thing that these X-Antibody decks are absolutely going to be trying to do. So this makes this basically a perfect card to be playing in this kind of deck. This one seems pretty gosh darn good to me. Still in level 3s, we see a playset of that. We also go ahead and we see ourselves a playset of the Ryudamon that came around in BT8. Now, when you play, you reveal 3 cards on top of your deck, add a Digimon with X-Antibody its type, and a Yujimusha from among them to your hand. Wow, that sounds an awful lot like the other level 3 that we're playing here, although with different Tamer, obviously. And then as an inheritable skill, on all turns, when this Digimon has X-Antibody in its type, you gain Decoy Black. That is to say, when one of your other black Digimon would be deleted by an opponent's effect, you can delete this Digimon instead. So already here we're starting to see some of these inheritable skills that you're going to be trying to pop under your X-Antibody cards, so that you can take advantage of them, because like I keep saying, that's the kind of thing that X-Antibody tend to do, and this fits in here very nicely indeed. We've also got 3 copies of Doraemon here, which shouldn't really surprise anyone. You know, Doraemon is, it's your X-Antibody level 3. It's the kind of thing you're going to be playing a couple different versions of. Now, this one doesn't have an inheritable skill, just a regular skill, but when you play, you can trash a card with X-Antibody in its traits in your hand and draw 2 cards. It's draw power. You're going to be playing a whole bunch of X-Antibody cards anyway, so being able to trash one of them and draw yourself a couple of cards, give yourself a little bit of extra consistency. I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, that sounds alright by me. So there's your level 3s, 3 playsets, all very much helping, very much carrying on the whole X-Antibody thing. Moving into level 4s, we've got the Doraemon from BT7. On your opponent's turn, while you have another Digimon in play with X-Antibody in its traits, or a card with X-Antibody in its traits in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, this Digimon gains blocker. And given that we're kind of expecting both of those things to be happening most of the time, really what this comes out as is, it's a blocker. And unlike so many of the other blockers we've seen, you don't have to give up memory when you attack or anything like that, which makes it very cool. Also on all turns, while this Digimon has X-Antibody in its traits, you get 1,000 power. And we're playing X-Antibody in this deck, so you're getting yourself 1,000 extra power. That sounds alright by me. We then have a dual colour purple and black. It is Dex Doraemon, which can evolve for 0 memory from Doraemon here. So you've got yourself kind of a standard level 4 that can evolve in the regular way, or you can just go up from your level 4 into this, you know, build your stack a bit more, etc. When Digivolving, you may trash a card with Dex in its name or X-Antibody in its traits from your hand to gain a memory, and as we've said a moment ago, that sounds fine by me. And when you're Digivolving, if this Digimon has Doragoromon in its Digivolution cards, or it Digivolved from the trash, one of your Digimon gains Blocker and Retaliation. Well, Blocker's great because it means you get to, block your opponent. And then Retaliation says if you get deleted in battle, you take them down with you, which of course makes an excellent combo with Blocker. And this sounds absolutely fine by me. And then moving up into level 5, we see a similar kind of thing. We've got Doragramon. When Digivolving, you can place a black card with X-Antibody and its traits from your hand to the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution cards to prevent effects from deleting it or reducing its power until the end of your opponent's next turn. So we've got a skill that puts cards under it, which again is very much the X-Antibody thing, and that gives you protection while you do so, which is very nice. And then it's got an inheritable skill. While this Digimon has X-Antibody in its traits on your turn, you get Security Attack +1. So we're just building up a huge amount of really super useful skills here, which is brilliant. And this is going to help out very, very nicely indeed. Extra Security Attack is great. And when you Digivolve, you can put stuff under it. That's clearly a great thing. Oh yeah, gee whiz, while we're here, we've also got Dex Doragramon. Digivolves as a 1-cost Doragramon, though it could just be a regular level 5 if you like. When Digivolving, you can trash a card with Dex in its name or X-Antibody in its traits in your hand to gain a memory. So you can essentially Digivolve for free. And when Digivolving, if this Digimon has Doragramon in its Digivolution cards, or it Digivolved from the trash, delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. And again, you're going to be trying to get that evolution line going quite nicely. So now we get to be deleting Digimon as we go here. Again, I cannot be the only person that thinks this is very nice and is going to work very nicely. So yeah, we're building this up really nicely. We're going through this evolution line as we might expect, and we're getting exactly what we want to be getting. So then we move up into the level 6s, and when we hit the level 6s, I mean, look, you know what we're going for here. We got Aphamon from BT9. Of course we've got Aphamon from BT9. I did tell you right at the beginning here that we were talking about an Aphamon deck. So what we've got here is when you Digivolve, you place a card with X-Antibody in its traits from your trash to the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution cards. And again, we've talked about how useful that can be as you go through the game. And then we've got the thing whereby, on your turn, once per turn, when this Digimon's Digivolution cards are increased by an effect, again, we're trying to do that all the time, you Digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon. And yes, when you Digivolve, you put a card under. And then because you've increased the Digivolution cards by effect, you do Digivolve one. And then, of course, you're going to be giving yourself all these skills like Security Attack +1, etc., which is clearly going to be a huge advantage. And you can see why people are getting excited and wanting to play this card. This one will work very nicely indeed. And of course, we're also playing Ouryuken here. Of course we are. Came around in BTA X-Antibody, exactly what we might expect. So when you Digivolve, you can place a Digimon with X-Antibody in its type from your hand under this Digimon as its bottom Digivolution card. Oh look, it's that skill again. But if you do, you delete one of your opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 7 or less. So you're deleting Digimon as well. Then on your turn, once per turn, when you place a Digimon card under any of your Digimon as a Digivolution card, you gain 2,000 power, which is great because it means you got up to 14,000, which is higher than your average level 6. And you can't be deleted by your opponent's effects until the end of your opponent's next turn. So it's giving you protection from all of those effect-based deletions, and it's giving you extra power, and you're putting extra Digimon under as evolution sources, which is the kind of thing we're doing here. This seems to be working rather nicely indeed. And they're your level 6s, and they do exactly what you would be expecting them to do, given that this is an X-Antibody deck. As for your level 7... it's Aphamon Ouryuken. I mean, obviously it is. That's what we're building up to here. That's kind of the point. Because if you've got an Aphamon with an Ouryuken in its Digivolution cards, you can Digivolve this as a free cost, and it's a 16,000 power level 7. One of only 2 16,000 power cards we've ever seen. So clearly that's a bit nuts. When you Digivolve, you delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the highest play cost, so you either take out just their biggest, or if they are tied, multiple. And at the end of your turn, you may return up to 7 non-Digi-Egg cards with X-Antibody and their traits from this Digimon's Digivolution cards to the bottom of their owner's deck to gain 1 memory for each card returned. Now, it doesn't actually reset the turn, so all those once per turn things unfortunately won't work. Digimon you play this turn cannot attack, but it does mean that it would go to your opponent, oh no, wait, it stays with your turn and you carry on for a bit longer, which is clearly a very, very nice skill indeed. Plus, you're deleting a bunch of powerful Digimon and you've got 16,000 power, and you've probably got all of those other skills we've talked about as well, and this just turns into a very powerful, very imposing Digimon indeed. Now, in terms of Tamers here, we did see that there were 2 that could be searched for, but unfortunately only one of them actually makes its way into the deck. One of them gets left out. The good news is, the one that gets left out is not Kota the Moto. This is the one where if you got 2 or fewer memory at the start of your turn, you set it to 3, and when you play, you reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, add a Digimon with X-Antibody in its type among them to your hand, and put the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. So look, it's bringing up your memory, which is nice, but obviously what we're really doing here is we're chaining consistency. So we've already got our Doraemon that can go and search out your Kota the Moto, and then when you play that, you go and search out another X-Antibody card, and it's Digimon, right? We know that Digimon doesn't have perfect search cards. They're all, the top X number of cards in your deck. It is far from perfect. I'm not pretending it's perfect, but I am telling you that when you add all this together, you've got some really nice consistency, and that's going to help you. But we also see Cool Boy coming in here, a 2-cost tamer. When you play, you reveal 3 cards on the top of your deck, add a Digimon with X-Antibody in its traits and an option card with X-Antibody in its traits to your hand. So again, extra consistency, which is lovely. And on your turn, when one of your Digimon digivolves into a Digimon of the same level with X-Antibody in its traits, you can suspend this card to draw 1. So in this deck, that would be taking your level 4 Doraemon and then digivolving it into that dual colour one with X-Antibody we talked about before. That kind of thing. The kind of thing that works very nicely. I mean, pretty obvious in terms of Tamers, honestly, but they are very good and they do work very nicely. Moving into option cards, we are actually playing that X-Antibody card, that X-Antibody option card, because you can just play it regardless of colour requirements if you have any Digimon in play. As a security, it goes to your hand and you gain a memory, and you can place it as the bottom Digivolution card on any Digimon that doesn't already have an X-Antibody option card under it. It cannot be trashed by any Digimon's Digivolution cards by card effects, which is good. And when you're attacking, you can Digivolve this Digimon into a Digimon in your hand with X-Antibody in its traits by paying its Digivolution costs. We see it popping up in all of these X-Antibody decks, and it's not terribly surprising. Speaking of not terribly surprising, we're playing Black Memory Boost. These Memory Boost cards are seeing a huge amount of play. We're seeing them all over, and there's a good reason for it. They surprise your opponent. So it's a 3-cost card. When you play it, you reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, add a black Digimon to your hand, and the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck. Then this goes into your battle area, and on a delay, you gain 2 memory. So your opponent is constantly having to play the rest of the game, knowing that whenever you like, you can just activate this and gain 2 memory out of nowhere, which is clearly not the kind of thing they want to be having to deal with. And they've always got to bear in mind that you can gain that extra memory. That is going to be very, very annoying for your opponent. Plus, it basically ends up as a 1-cost card that searches out a Digimon by the time you're all done. That ain't bad, ladies and gentlemen. That is not bad at all. And then finally, we've got one more black option card. It is a 2-cost option card. We are having a little bit of a chat about Breath of the Gods. Not the first time we've seen this popping up in a deck. One of your Digimon gains Reboot. It activates during your opponent's unsuspend phase. Its power cannot be reduced, and it cannot be returned to the hand or deck until the end of your opponent's next turn. So basically you get yourself a bunch of protection while also gaining reboot for just 2 memory, and that, ladies and gentlemen, sounds a-okay by me. Here's a list as a whole. I like this deck. This looks like a very good deck. It looks like the kind of one which is going to be staying around. X-Antibody was very hyped coming into this set. It's one we all thought was going to end up being a very good deck. And everything we're seeing at the moment is telling us that, yes, this is a very good deck. And it does absolutely look like it's here to stay. But now I want to hear from you guys. Are you loving this? Do you think it's going to be a top tier deck? Do you think it's overrated? Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi. That's where we talk Digimon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.